And now for the tale of the tape in this heavyweight showdown between the Skaven, who shall be led by THICKET, KLAW, and the Vampire Counts, who shall be helmed by Manfred von Baldstein. So as far as the build goes, we're going to be going with the good old-fashioned Skaven Death Star, which of course has been vastly improved by this new DLC. And you guys saw this build a couple days ago, and I know a couple people in the comments were like, how would THICKET, KLAW, do in this matchup? Would he be able to be used pretty efficiently in this Death Star? And I think the answer is yes. He has a couple of really good abilities that go very well with tightly packed formations. So number one, the Vampire Counts are going to generally be pretty bunched up, right? They're going to have Graveguard and Skeletons and Zombies and all sorts of stuff like that. So having the Brass Orb is going to be super valuable. Number one, it has 3 charges, kind of like, Skrulk's Rod of Corruption, which I believe has infinite charges, but nonetheless, this does a little bit more damage, and it's also quite good against ethereal units, which you do often see. Sometimes people, especially my opponent, Professor Pone, over here, slipping in a couple of these ghostly units, it's going to be quite helpful against that. On top of that, he does have the Storm Demon, which is decent at sniping the Flying Lords and characters, and Death Frenzy is also quite good. So you're going to be using Plague Monks, Censor Bearers, Hellpit Abominations, Rat Ogres, a lot of troops that are really going to benefit from Death Frenzy. It's going to give them melee attack, weapon strength, just all kinds of good stuff, and immunity to Psych. Immunity, I don't know why that's so tough for me to say fast. But anyways, THICKET, KLAW going to be rocking in deep here with the Warlock Engineer, and the Engineer is just here for the Mortis Engine effect. So for anyone who doesn't know, the Warlock Engineer does indeed have the Warp Shard armor, which is quite good. It's like a mini Mortis Engine. I don't think it does as much damage as a Mortis Engine, but every little bit counts against Vampire Counts in those very grindy long fights. So the front line is going to be Plague Monks, and Plague Monks actually do okay against like Graveguard, and that was another thing I wanted to kind of articulate. A lot of you guys in that replay I had with King of the Dead were like, oh, King of the Dead brought all ghouls, but how will this do against Graveguard? Well, in this replay, we're most certainly going to find out, as Professor Pone did bring Graveguard. The Sternsman, I think, over here on the far side, or it might just be all standard Graveguard. No, Sternsman over there in the back. Anyways, Plague Pack, we do have 2 Plague Monks in the front line. We have the Council Guard, so the Stormfirm with Halberds ROR, going to be providing Guardian to THICKET, KLAW, but THICKET, KLAW is pretty tough to kill, and he also does have a Halberd. He has bonus first large, 56 melee defense, 110 armor, so he's going to be much tankier than someone like Skrulk. So we're going to see how that plays out here. And yeah, the Council Guard going to be doing their job, hopefully. We got a couple groups of Rat Ogres. I think, is it just one? It looks like it might just be one, because THICKET, KLAW plus the build I brought this time was a little bit more expensive, so I had to narrow it down. But of course, we have 2 Hellpit Abominations, which I think are very, very good against Zombie Dragons, Terror Guys, Vargulfs, even though the Vargulfs in that last battle were just like out trading them, but I think that's mostly kind of a bug, or the way that they just work mechanically in terms of their like movements and their attacks and getting knocked over. Anyways, Professor Pone getting pretty balls deep here with Manfred, and Manfred is one of the few characters that you can actually get away with using like Winds of Death and not really lose the game because of it, because if you cast Winds of Death and it doesn't get you value, it can be a huge Winds of Magic sink, which really hurts vampires, because you're not going to have your summons, you're not going to have your invocations in the heck, but with Manfred you can get away with it. He has the Sword of Unholy Power, the Master of the Black Arts, he's going to be in good shape. But I will be dodging this pretty quickly here. The Plague Monks and the Censor Bear is going to be scooting, but it catches a couple of guys. It took me a moment, because we were actually in chat together and he was like, a little bit of distraction going on, but I did notice it at the last second, so thankfully the Plague Pack and company are going to be okay. For the rest of Pone's army, he's got the Chill Guys and the Hex Wraiths, and these guys would normally be pretty tough to deal with. They cause terror, but the fact that the Plague Pack in the front does have Demagoguery is going to make my army very tanky. He's got a couple of Fellbats, just in case I went with guns, Skeletons. He also has Manfred up in the skies with Spirit Leech, Winds of Death, and the basic, summon spells, Invocation, Graveguard in the back, and a couple Doggos on the far side. Yeah, actually a couple groups of dogs, including the Dire Pack, which is quite good against Rat Ogres and Hellpits. So let's get the show on the road. So the Fellbats are going to be swooping in here, just trying to distract me probably so we can get those good engagements. And the Plague Pack is going to be jumping up here on the Skeletons, and they'll be crushing those guys pretty quick. So a little bit overzealous with these guys. I just wanted to get a free kill here. I was like, oh, I can just clean these guys up really quick. But it looks like Manfred's kind of perching to maybe attack those guys. We're not sure. In the meantime, some of the Chill Guys are going to be jumping onto the Hellpit Abomination and these Plague Monks on the flank. But for the most part, I've done an okay job of staying relatively high and tight. There's going to be a Brass Orb over here, which is going to be landing right on top of the Chill Guys. It's not doing like lethal damage, but it's certainly doing a little bit of damage. Not bad at all. And I also do get a Warp Lightning. So THICKET, KLAW coming in with the Warp Lightning and getting some really, really good value. In the meantime, Doggos in the back are going to be coming in, so the Dire Pack and company are going to just be screeching into my back line against Skaven Slaves and Clan Rats. And the Plague Pack actually gets hit with a huge breath attack, so that was pretty disastrous. And at this point, I realized I need this Plague Pack. I can't afford to lose them, so let's pull them back and see what we can do. I do also drop a Howling Warp Gale on top of Manfred. And of course, another benefit of bringing Lore of Ruin, you don't really have to bring a second caster for it if you do bring THICKET, KLAW. But anyways, we get the Howling Warp Gale, the Hellpit Abomination, doing a little bit of damage against Manfred. It looks like he's slapping up that dragon right now, which is, quite good. Over on the flank, the Hellpit Abomination is still going to be fighting those Ghostly Knights, and it's doing some decent work with the support of the Warp Lightning, and I didn't take too much damage, but the Graveguard are grinding out this frontline engagement. So the Plague Monks, even though they have a bonus versus infantry, their armor-piercing values aren't the best, but for the most part, it's not like a terrible trade for them against Graveguard, but Graveguard will win that in the long fight. So the Plague Monks here, let's go ahead and take a look at their HP. 75 models there against 87 of the Graveguard, so a little bit one-sided in that affair. Now the Plague Pack and the Council Guard are going to be scooting forward, trying to intercept and help out a little bit. As the Chill Guys and Manfred are certainly causing some disruption in the front line, but really just staying on top of those Warp Lightnings. Warp Lightning is just so damn good against these type of cap units. You can see it's just melting those magic units. Invocation of the Heck is going to be going down on Manfred as well as these troops, but it does also hit the Graveguard here, so the grind is going pretty good for the Vampire Counts in the front line, but as far as the backline harass, I've been able to hold them back. A lot of these Ghostly Knights are taking a lot of damage, and we still have some really good AP with the Plague Pack. They have 81 kills, and these guys are basically the masters of just cutting down Graveguards. So hopefully over the course of a long fight, they will be able to grind it out. Now, the bounce power was a little bit in my favor, but Professor Pone has managed to kind of climb it back a little bit with those invocations. Manfred's back up in the sky. He's probably going to be dropping another breath attack, and here it comes. It's going to be going down on some of these Plague Monks in the front line. And it certainly melts those guys pretty bad, but like I said, they're immune to psychology with the nearby buff, so they're not going to be terror routed. You actually have to naturally break them, which is pretty good. So the Helped Abominations form in a bit of a Helm's Deep on THICKET KLAW down here, and he does magic damage as well. So that's kind of another nice boon here. Oh my god, what is he doing? Just like flying up in the air and pounding some of those guys. That is some pretty serious stuff. But KLAW's in good shape. He's been pretty healthy, and he's just like flying around. He's like Master Splinter from Ninja Turtles. Just I mean, I guess that would be like the Clan Eshin leader technically, but nonetheless, KLAW's doing some really good work here. So we're going to be overcasting a Death Frenzy here, which is going to hit our entire formation. All these Plague Monks and the Helped Abominations up to 63 melee attack. These guys are just linebackers right now. Everyone's just juicy. Everyone is just immune to psychology. They're all on steroids, and things are going pretty well here in the fight. The Plague Pack in the front line has finally gotten to the Graveguard. They're really grinding those guys out. And the Council Guard, 52, and 29, so that extra melee attack really helping them in the fight against the Graveguard. Warp Lightning as well is quite good against the Vampire Count, so I'm really actually liking that. And almost makes me kind of, weigh a judgment. I wonder if THICKET KLAW would be a better choice in this kind of Death Star style of play compared to Scroll. Time will tell. So in the back, we do get another Brass Orb on top of these spooky knights, so the Chill guys are going to get caught up with that, doing a little bit of damage. Now, Manfred has done some work against the Helped Abomination, and he's been able to kind of sneak away and just do the evil cackling Necromancer thing. Oh, look at this synced animation. So cool. Yeah, that's pretty awesome. Anyways, Helped Abomination does tumble, and a couple of people were also asking, is that some new graphics on the Helped Abomination? And it is. I believe that Creative Assembly did add some kind of unique warp flow to them, which I think looks really damn cool. So they're going to be slapping at Manfred in this 2v1 fight, and the bounce power is going to be ebbing in my favor a little bit here. The Council Guard are in very, very good shape. It's so nice having an unbreakable anchor in the Skaven army that you can really kind of hold on. And because normally in matchups like this against any undead, right, it's like a Morngul Rush or, the Tomb Kings with Tomb Scorpion spam. The Hellpits usually can do the trick, but they need the support. Before this DLC, it seemed like the Skaven just really all the troops would run. The Helped Abominations would get surrounded, and they would just get pimp slapped from there. So a massive Invocation of the Heck is going to be going down for the Vampire Counts. The Chill Guys and company are just going to be piling in here. Another Overcasted Death Frenzy is going to be going down, juicing up all my troops. So the Plague Pack here just rocking hard. 132 kills, 128 on the Council Guard. Got a couple Rat Ogres back, and it looks like they just finished their fight, so I need to pile them back into the other fight here. But Manfred is up in the skies. He's having some trouble getting down here. THICKET KLAW was actually able to get a couple slaps here, and a huge Warp Lightning coming down, just shrekking those Vampire Counts troops. And THICKET KLAW is going to be getting a breath attack in the face, but you know what? He's got power armor, and basically space bar rat. So he's going to be moving in there with his claw. Manfred coming in for the snipe, but THICKET KLAW is not going to take that shit sitting down. He's going to be turning around with his little pitchfork and putting some hurt on some of these large units. And it's really nice having like an anti-large halberd lord. He's kind of like Noctilus in that way, like relatively tanky on foot, hard to displace. He has anti-large, he has armor piercing, so he's not going to be a complete pushover at defending himself. Anyways, Helped Abomination is going to be jumping on top of Manfred right here. And with that, Manfred's going to be doing his fancy attack animation, but as soon as that's over, I think he's just going to crumble down to the earth here, and a Brass Orb is going to be polishing off the last of the Vampire Count troops, and a couple of these unfortunate Council Guard. But that's pretty much it. I think there's just like one zombie lurking somewhere, and it looks like these zombies are going to be disappearing here, and that's it. So I think that THICKET KLAW was really good. I actually had a really good time using the Warp Lightnings and the Overcasted Death Frenzy. That makes your formation, especially since you're in such a tight formation already, you're getting just a huge value train. So I think that might be, but Skrulk's Liber is just so damn good too. It's really hard to but it's good. This is a good thing that I'm having this dilemma, and I'm not just being like, oh yeah, Skrulk's 100% better. There is an argument to be made that THICKET KLAW is a better choice than Skrulk in this matchup. He comes with the Howling Warp Gale. You don't have to pay for it on an Engineer. The Chain Lightning, or not Chain Lightning, but Warp Lightning is really good against ethereal units and the Sternsmen and those elite pockets of infantry. And, Death Frenzy Overcasted does give you immune to psych, so even if you do lose the Plague Pack, you can get the immune to psych somewhere else. And yeah, he also has anti-large and AP against Vargulfs, and he does magic damage against ethereal units. He does bring a lot of things to the table, which I think is quite nice. But the build's really good. I think going in this direction, honestly, you just substitute Skrulk for THICKET or vice versa, and you're going to have a pretty decent build. And yes, the Vampire Counts, I think, can beat it. I think that Terror Guys would be a little bit more solid against it, maybe. It's hard to say, because you do have the Howling Warp Gale, so you can lock them down. But the breath attacks just do so much damage, but yeah, I'd have to think about that. It seems a little bit tricky for the Vampire Counts to deal with, but Vargulfs actually are probably still the better pick, just because they're like the way their mechanics work, when the Hellpit Abominations hit them, they get knocked over instead of taking damage, which is a little bit busted in my opinion. But I don't know. Hard to say. I'll have to experiment a little bit with the Vampire end of that. It certainly seems a little bit tricky. I don't think you can afford with Skaven to go with like a gunline build against a good Vampire Counts player, because they're going to be able to swarm your backline with Hounds and Fellbats and Vargeist, and it's just too tough to handle, in my opinion. But, that's just my 2 cents. Thankfully, I was able to dodge that Winds of Death. I think that if that had caught me, it would have 100% gone the other direction. I would have just lost. So very well played to Professor Pone. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this Skaven versus Vampire Count game, and we will see you guys next time. Take care.